greatest insult to justice, and in my mind, the biggest story of my entire life. Beyond politics, I mean, I think of the things which really affected me most, the greatest stories of all time, and this has to be one of them. Jeffrey Epstein, murdered in prison because he knew these secrets. Ghislaine Maxwell all of a sudden saying these famous people are not guilty, and contemporaneously being moved to a Bryan, Texas minimum security facility. And understand that this is not a prison. This is a camp for people who don't pay their way somehow out of the prison experience, um, either through their behavior or through not having horrible actions. So it's unprecedented. It makes no sense for a sex offender to be there. It makes no sense for somebody who's at suicide risk of being assassinated for what she knows. It makes absolutely no sense, except for two answers. One is she's lying and saying that people who aren't guilty or are guilty are not guilty to buy her freedom, and they're not mutually exclusively. Contemporaneously, we're being totally deceived right in front of our faces. And what's going to happen is she's going to get killed, just like Jeffrey Epstein, because she knows. She knows. She knows all the secrets on these creepers, and she can change the history of the world and global politics, government, finance. What these creepers did was they collected, they made these creeper parties with the people who were at the head of finance, inventions, technology, uh, business, marketing, media, sports. All of those people, the royalty of the world, anyone who's not just a doctor or a lawyer, anyone who's like just got mega wealth, like not $10 million, like $100 million or more, or that level of influence. All of these people were brought into this web, or they attempted to bring all these people into this web, and they were very successful in entrapping a lot of them, as you can see. Because, like I said, Bryan, Texas is not a facility, according to the head of Department of Corrections, the national head of the Department of Corrections. It's not a facility that sex offenders ever go to. And according to him, this poses an incredible risk of her being assassinated and or committing suicide. So this is, according to the national head of the Department of Corrections who's reacting to this is totally nonsensical and makes no sense. So what are the answers? What can we be led to believe if Ghislaine Maxwell, who deserves to be in a maximum security prison, in a Southeast Asian prison, she deserves to suffer for what she did. She deserves to suffer. All of a sudden she releases information saying, oh, this person who has the power to put me in a minimum security facility is not guilty. It's literally the most absurd, just blatantly, transparently evil and deceptive and manipulative behavior ever. And what's happening? Oh, I always try to whistleblow and say this, but you guys don't listen. Cosmopolitan contacted me. I spoke with the lead editors of Wall Street Journal and Forbes. It's because this channel is all my kickboxing. I do have a, forget what it is, I think it's a TikTok, which I no longer, I haven't even been on it for a year and a half, but a whistleblowing channel where I talk about these people with detail, with proof. And all these magazines and newspapers contacted me, or I contacted them. I had maybe 5 or 6 different attorneys who took the case for free. You know what it is for an attorney to take a case for free? because I try to come after these people. Good luck. This is why friends of mine who were uh, decorated law enforcement officers in intel at the time told me this is why Comey and them didn't come after Trump, because they're all in bed together. And maybe that's not just a figure of speech. Wow, and to believe I was patriotic and I love this country so much, and I still do, but I just have to say right now, I just love the people. You know, I can understand how people in Ukraine and Russia feel when they totally are, you know, just someplace on the, you shouldn't say Ukraine. Ukraine is an amazing place. I can understand how a Russian feels, where you just like love your people, love your country, but hate your government. Or how you'd feel, I guess, on any side living in Palestine, or the tragedy that's happening in Gaza right now. I mean, this is really what happens, the real tragedy, that we even have kings. We don't need a king. We don't need a president. For what? For stuff like this? For him to be involved in this type of stuff and friends with these people and freeing them and enabling them? And people who aren't down, who are working in the FBI, are now going to become actors or woodworkers. They're going to like either quit their job or be fired because they're not covering up. This is what a guy who was a star of a Marvel Comics Disney movie told me. He was a former federal agent the year before. Dude was on Mad Juice, by the way. He admitted it. He had no issues with it. He's like, yeah, I'm juicing now. They gave me this role for this Marvel Comics lead role. I'm not going to say which film, so I don't dox him, so I don't reveal who he is. But yeah, he used to be a federal agent. He quit because he was so disgusted that they let pedophiles and creeps out, which is what we're seeing now on the highest level. And what are we doing about it? Absolutely nothing. Everything needs to be revealed. Everything needs to be exposed so that we find out what's going on. And we all know what's going on. It's pretty pathetic that we've been lied to like this, and that we continue to just blatantly and blindly and sheepishly go along with it. I'm going to finish this post now, guys. We cannot stand for this. This is an insult to and an assault, an attack on our freedoms. If we're going to have a president, if we're going to have leaders, then we have to know that human beings, that they're not harming our sisters and our mothers and our daughters. And sadly, that's not the case. Right now, it's the same as living in Russia or living in any place like that, you know, where you have no freedom, where oligarchs, where rich politicized rulers are, you know, living in some horrible Middle Eastern state where you're just a good person trying to raise your family and work hard. And you've got some dictator politicizing everything, even religion, even your belief in God, all of a sudden becomes all these rules and laws which are to benefit these evil people. So I could go on ad nauseum about this. It's just really, it's the most suspect and obviously disgusting and guilt-ridden thing that's ever happened. Ghislaine Maxwell, unprecedented, one of the most famous pedophiles and human traffickers and human destroyers of young women's lives. That goes with their families too, their brothers, their fathers, their mothers. They're gonna carry these scars with them for the rest of their lives, needlessly. Why? Because of this same dynamic where the people in power enable this. And now we've just given them free rein. So let's see. Yeah, it's an insult to our freedom. We should boycott this. We should make sure that those files and everything gets exposed, everything gets revealed. And as of yet, it has not. Return Ghislaine Maxwell to a maximum security prison Get her out of Bryan, Texas, where it'll be so easy for them to shut her up by killing her. Uh, and that's what's going to happen. And then they're going to be protected. And these secrets are going to die with her. So it's a horrible thing. I love everybody in this country except for those politicians up top and the people who support them and the people who make a life doing this type of stuff. I've it doesn't disgust me. It brings a feeling of clarity and purity to my heart. It really does. Because now I can bifurcate, I can separate between what America really is. America is good, hardworking people who respect and love each other, regardless of who has money and who has class and who fits into a certain aesthetic or look or like oligarch power dynamic, which is, what happens all over the world. And then, and what's happening here now. So we need to demand that Ghislaine Maxwell be out of minimum security. And like I said, this is a misnomer. This is not the correct phrase. Bryan, Texas is not a minimum security prison. You could call it that type of correctional facility, whatever. This is where no sex offenders are. They've never been transferred anybody of her caliber there who's done her level of evil and destruction to the world. It is the ultimate dormitory style. There's no gate. There's just like a fence there. You think their operatives can't get in there and assassinate her if she has secrets that will take down the most powerful man on earth? And all of a sudden they've just, she declares that they're innocent and instantaneously she's transferred there and she basically buys her freedom because it's, the difference between dormitory minimum security prison and actual jail and actual prison is very stark. Jail and prison is not safe. You're not safe there. You're not comfortable. The hygiene is horrible. Everybody knows this. They try to make you suffer for your crime by the conditions. Bryan, this dormitory prison where Ghislaine Maxwell, Bryan, Texas, got transferred to, supposedly it's like the cushiest, like most comfortable. I'm sure she's gonna have activities and access to like everything that a normal person would have to without having to work, without having to struggle and suffer and take the risks of life itself that normal working people have to take. She gets a free vacation over there. So it's really egregious. And of course, I don't care about her life, but she does have information that we all need. So for them just to put her there, and of course, she's going to be dead the next 3 years. They're going to wait till this dies down, wait about 18 months from now, from the broadcast and release of this video, and she's going to die of mysterious circumstances, which is one of their hitman operatives, which, as I said, I have friends who did this, who are cop intel buddies who flew me first class to watch them do this, and they're insanely good at what they do. And, Ghislaine Maxwell, look at Jeffrey Epstein. They targeted him and it took them less than 60 seconds to kill him. The only people who weren't masters there were the people in the editing booth who forgot to seamlessly blend that 1 minute. And then there's a little blurb in orange where you see the operative. And trust me, they make sure these guys are black belts. I mean, I've beaten up my friends who are just, Navy SEAL. These guys are beyond any level operative you can imagine. When they recruit them, they make sure they're over 6 feet tall, a certain weight, can run like a Navy SEAL with 60 pounds on their back for 10 miles. I mean, stuff you and I could never do in this lifetime. That's who's going to take care of Ghislaine Maxwell. That's why I make videos saying stuff like our cop hitman buddies, like it's not crazy. I hate that life, but Cosmopolitan magazine contacted me about some crypto influencer chick who they murdered, who my boss murdered, had a 6-figure job for these creeps. So I go into it on my Whistleblowing channel. I'm not going to share the details here because I would literally sound insane. So I just want to keep it keep it kind of like broad brush strokes, high concept, just for the masses. Would also help heal myself. But it is a tragedy that I've literally, as a background actor for 20 years, like I said, a guy I met who was in a Marvel Comics film, in a Disney film, the lead actor was a former federal agent who resigned because of this reason. Because I call them creepers. Creepers is the term, I guess. These people are pedophiles. These people are rich. Uh, and Jeffrey Epstein created a whole farm of extorting these people, getting tapes on them, getting information on them, getting evidence of them partying with these underage girls, and then all of a sudden he's got them in his back pocket. So it's clearly what happened. It's it's what they set out to do, and they were very good at it, and also very good at destroying young women's lives. So why are we protecting these people? What has Ghislaine Maxwell done that she deserves to be in a minimum security prison? She deserves to go to hell. She deserves to be. I don't believe in capital punishment or corporal punishment, namely beating people or killing people um, as a punishment for a crime. But if I were to go in that direction, if somebody were to argue me in that direction and mention her name, I might scratch my head and be like, I can see where you're coming from. But sadly and ironically, while the rest of us are just trying to stay alive and live our best lives, she's got a free life without having to work for the next 3 years before one of these superheroes, super undercover cop hitman operatives uh, comes to flex on her like they did Jeffrey Epstein. And again, she's at this point, it's going to be 16 months down the line, 9 months down the line, 36 months down the line, where this is going to be so quiet. This is not going to be the biggest story in the world anymore. They're not going to have cameras everywhere like they had in Jeffrey Epstein's facility, like in some Supermax facility. Look how crappy those cameras were. It looks like that was shot on a toaster, on a Sunbeam toaster from 1964. I mean, you've got somebody here who has the secrets to all the heads of state and all these people in power, and he was partying with them, and you don't put cameras as good as the $1,200 phone camera that I'm shooting this on him. You put some scrambled VHS looking technology with like less DPI than like a tenth of the screen. Are you kidding? That's a setup just like Ghislaine Maxwell, who's so titillated now because she sold her freedom for she thinks she's bought her freedom by saying, "Oh, these people didn't do anything." Yeah, Ghislaine, I've never met her. I don't know why I'm calling her by first name. Yeah, you're gonna get murdered in there, keeping the secrets of these high-level creepers. And this will always be a story that all of us take to our grave. I plan to pass away in 90 years like a normal mammal, that we're just going to be disgusted by. We knew we were lied to the whole time. We knew they deceived us, and there's nothing we could do. So what's your other channel name? Good question. I'll try to link it below. It's a TikTok channel. Like I said, it's well-researched stuff. I actually mention people by name, billionaires, the richest people on earth who I worked for, people involved in crypto, people involved in cleaning up all of these messes, all these unsavory situations where the world and life doesn't cover for them. So it's tragic, and I sound like a freaking conspiracy theorist speaking about it, but it's absolutely true. And thank God the information is out there. We can't be insulted like this. We can't have our freedoms and our right to know, our right to transparency, our right to knowledge. That's part of our freedoms. We can't have that attacked by having, Ghislaine Maxwell is one of the most, holds such powerful information, be in this vulnerable situation, especially after we saw what happened to Jeffrey Epstein, So, yeah, Good luck to everyone. God bless. I hope we make it through this, finding out what the truth is, no matter how uncomfortable it is. Finding out that our leaders were just horrible people. Like I said, at the end of the day, maybe we just need to lead ourselves. All these things we need, think we need money, government, all this stuff. Like we could easily just design a world where we just live and work and help each other out and don't compete and don't have these monsters, these evil monsters ruling us and dictating. Hey, this is the essence of America, anyways. This is the essence of, um, well, Native America. The essence was the people and the spirit and the land and God. But colonialized America, the essence was getting away from the king, getting away from oppressive rule. And what have we turned into? Oligarch nation. We're basically, it's like Russia now. We don't have the most sacred freedom, which is the freedom of truth, which is the freedom of knowing truth and honesty and understanding, which we've had growing up our entire lives. So this is really egregious, and we have to do something. We have to get the files out there. We have to get Ghislaine Maxwell back in a regular prison where she belongs to suffer and rot, and like a sink toilet. That's what I hope she gets, like the combo pack. That's what she deserves. You know, to sleep on a concrete bed with a smelly mattress. She deserves to suffer. She does not deserve to be in Bryan, Texas, which is, like I said, by all accounts, just this dormitory style jail, which is really not a jail. It's like you're not free to go, but in every other way, it's not a jail. So how is she being punished then? And at the same time, we're all just like, oh yeah. And her partner, who held all these secrets, just got murdered. All of a sudden, not only is she in a place where it's so easy for her to commit suicide, unquote, but also a place for her to get murdered by, and you know, it's a well-known fact now that these billionaires, like the one I worked for before I found out about all this stuff, so many people who are heads of state, famous musicians, politicians, people who are head of sports teams, people who are head of sports leagues, people who own sports leagues, like anybody who was in power, inventors, finance, crypto, anything you could think of. The most powerful people on earth were invited to these cool parties with these other people, and they would groom them very carefully, bring some of them into the back room where they could get this on them, where they could destroy people's lives, but at the same time, not only that, create this extortion network, which they created on these super powerful people so that they overtook their power. They now had an influence on these people's power, which was, as you can see now, got Ghislaine Maxwell to the point where it got her out of jail, where she's now in a dormitory. And like I said, it's 36 months. I mean, do you want to we should do a betting chart. We should do a betting chart. When will Ghislaine Maxwell be assassinated? And I'm going to put heavy money on, I like that 8-month to 18-month range, because then she can't even speak up. Like maybe they try to do it, they fail, and she realizes she's got to speak up now. She's not going to live, you know. So it's I think they're going to kill her in like between a year. Like I said, it'll be too obvious if it happens like 2 weeks after she moves into minimum security. She has a heart attack. Everyone's gonna say it was they did it. But a year from now, with all the craziness, with all the crazy stories in the headlines and everything else, and the wars and everything else, and we need to pay attention to all that too. Sure, everyone's gonna just not forget about this, but I mean, what can we do? Focus on it to this extent for 2 years? I mean, imagine when Russia invaded Ukraine. Everyone was on forums, everyone was online. We were stopping protesting, and we still all feel that way. A free country being annexed is the most evil, corrupt, disgusting, despicable assault on international freedom. But nobody's really protesting anymore. People internationally, even though it was protested in so many countries, even though so many people came to help and give millions and do what they could to support the Ukrainian people who were fighting for their freedom when they were just farming the day before and enjoying nature and sunshine in one of the most beautiful countries ever. And I've traveled the world and I never went there. But oh man, people who've been to Costa Rica and Thailand rave about Odessa and the Black Sea resorts and Ukraine, just as being beautiful natural places where you can just start a life and a family and have wonderful food and freedom and land and topography, and just a beautiful, beautiful place. So there you go. Same thing is going to happen as did with Ukraine with this story. It's going to be something which is going to be very personal to us all, but it's not going to be at the forefront. It's not going to be at the forefront of our consciousness, Ghislaine Maxwell. Especially, like I said, in 12 to 24 months when her ticket expires, when they've really got to silence her because she really knows and probably physically possesses. Not only does she know, probably physically is in possession of hard data and information, videos, photographs, accounts, etc., which would implicate the most powerful people on earth as being the biggest creepers ever. So, yeah, she'll be dead in 24 months. It's tragic. It's sad. She should tell what she knows and suffer in a cold, rotting jail where people who do what she's done, where people who violate people's souls and spirits with the act with least dignity that you could ever do. She did it in such a calculated manner to so many hundreds of young women. Just took their lives, took their experience of joy and trust and happiness and purity forever. You think you can go to war and forget about it? Tell me about it. I was there for one day and I still can't let it go. You think these women can let go? Maybe 1 out of 5 of them can, I'm assuming. The other 4 out of 5 carry this with them every day. It affects how they look at people, how they talk to people. So she's destroyed thousands of lives. Now it's just normal that she's in a minimum security prison? How? Why? Oh, no pedophile ever, no human trafficker ever, no high profile, high risk for homicide and suicide inmate ever has been moved to Bryan, Texas. So this is the biggest insult to us as a nation, that we're actually being fed this and not screaming at the top of our lungs, literally not going to work, putting everything on hold until we get some true answers, some true transparency, the release of the files, and a true account of what happened. Like I said, I think we all know, but hopefully the sad truth will come out so that it can be actually factually confirmed. But come on, like, using common sense, there's just not many other conclusions you can come to other than she's holding valuable information, she's lying in order to protect people who can temporarily put her in a more comfortable place. The national head of the Department of Corrections says that Bryan, Texas is a place where she can easily commit suicide and or get killed, which are huge risks for, we don't want her to get killed, because they will kill her because she knows information, not because she's bad. They don't care about that. They're worse. That's why they want to kill her. So, God help us. I still love this nation. I still love the people of America, but the government has now officially gone oligarch. Like I said, it's no different than we're in Russia or we're in some oppressive Middle Eastern regime, whether it be Israel or Gaza or Iran or, I mean, geez, even before this whole thing, my friends in Israel were telling me that they were starving because of Bibi Netanyahu. My friends who were cab drivers over there couldn't pay their mortgage, and they had nice apartments and kids living with it. They had bills they couldn't even pay before this happened. So, shout out to everyone all over the world who is struggling and suffering. And in America, this is the war that we're fighting right now: the war for information, the war for our freedom, the war for the right to know that the people who are in charge either are or aren't directly involved in this in the worst way. And we should be screaming from the top of our lungs for this. So shout out to everyone. I'll put a link to the Whistleblower channel down below. And yeah, peace.